Let's bring in Ontario Liberal MPP and former Premier Kathleen Wynne to talk a little bit more about this. Kathleen, what's your reaction to the report and the criticism?
Well, we have been saying for some time, and I have specifically on the education front, I have said that this government has not reacted the way and as quickly as we needed. And so quite apart from what the Auditor General has or hasn't said, and the government will have to respond and will have to deal with those critiques from her. But I have been very concerned, Bev, about the lack of tracing and testing or the inconsistency of the tracing and testing regime in Ontario. I've been very worried about the lack of investment in education, the lack of investment in smaller class sizes. And so I think these are things that the government's going to have to respond to, and I believe is going to have to rectify.
Well, and today we're finding out even more confusion about vaccines, and the Ontario government certainly saying not that long ago, we're going to get over 2 million and it's going to be in the new year. That was information the government said it got from the federal government. We're not hearing a clear plan from the federal government yet. Now we're not hearing exactly when we might get these vaccines. I wanted to get your thoughts on where this plan is and why we're not getting the specifics from the federal government.
Well, I think that, one of the things that the Auditor General's report points to, and again, I'm not going to speak about specifics, but a general sense that there's confusion in the decision-making process. And we have felt that for some time as we've watched a gap between what the city may be saying and what provincial leaders are saying and what the federal government is saying. So I really think what's needed right now, Bev, is a very clear conversation among all three levels of government on exactly what the plan is going to be, and then it needs to be laid out for the people of Ontario and the people of Canada. And so Doug Ford and Jason Kenney and the premiers need to sit down with the Prime Minister, and there needs to be a very clear understanding of what is going to happen going forward, to the degree that that's possible. One of the things I've worried about is that there's been a bit of jumping the gun in terms of what the numbers of vaccines are going to be. The Minister of Health in Ontario came out with some numbers, and then those weren't validated by the federal government. Everybody needs to be on the same page. This is the one thing that people in this country are most concerned about is, when can I get this vaccine? Will it be safe? And when can we get our lives back to some sort of normal? And that means that everybody has to be on the same page. So that's their task right now.
And some of the criticism, as you know, was about, in terms of lack of preparation, that plans weren't in place, labs weren't in place, as per the recommendations from SARS in 2003, and some of that obviously would fall on your watch.
Yeah, and when I did read the summaries of each of the chapters that the Auditor General put out, and obviously, it really deeply concerns me that things that I might have thought had been done were not done. And I take responsibility as a former leader for gaps that may have been in place. But at the same time, the job of the current government is to make sure that they do the very best with the resources that they've got. It's not that nothing had been done. There were SARS recommendations that were implemented. I know that for sure because I visited hospitals. I saw the isolation units. I know that there was work that was done. So that, was it enough? Apparently not. But the reality is that this government has had months now to respond to this particular crisis. And I think that I think it's irresponsible right now if the Premier focuses on the past and doesn't deal with what should have happened between March and today.
So a month ago, Ms. Wynne, you said you were not going to be running for office. You were going to leave this crazy world behind. On the one hand, you could look back and look at the length of your career, which by that time is going to be, 20 years in public office. But on the other hand, you might just be saying, with everything going on, I can't wait to see the back door of this. How do you feel about that now?
Well, it's not the latter. I love the work that I have had the privilege to do for the last 20 years. I was first elected as a school trustee in 2000, so I've already been 20 years in public office, and it is It is such a privilege. And I don't think you ever leave, you know. It's like when you become a parent. You never are not a parent. I think that I will never not be paying close attention to what's going on in Ontario and in this country. I care deeply about it. And so I'm not eager to leave, but I do believe it's time to pass the torch to the next generation in the case of Don Valley West.
Okay, so in terms of the next generation, what do you tell people? Because I know you're speaking about this all the time. What do you tell people, and I guess specifically women, about the importance of a public role or running for office or getting involved?
Well, young people will ask me, how do you deal with all the criticism and the negativity? And the real answer to that is that you have such an opportunity to change people's lives. You know, whether you are a backbench MPP or whether you are the premier, you have the opportunity to have an impact on people's lives. And that's what makes this work so rewarding. As an MPP, people come into my office, or in this case, in COVID, we get calls, we get emails. They're looking for support. They're looking for answers to questions, and we can help them with that. We can help people in their lives. As the premier, obviously, I had the opportunity to bring in policies and to work with the federal government, for example, on enhancing the Canada Pension Plan that will have impacts for decades to come. So the ability to affect people's lives and change them for the better is what makes it worth it. And the negativity kind of pales beside that. I'm not saying it's not hard, because it is. It's hard to be the target of negativity. But that's not what you think about when you get up in the morning. You think about, okay, how do I solve this problem? How do I work with the people who have the answers?
So I guess in terms of what's next, Ms. Wynne, I'd like to say I don't think we've heard the last of you, that you will still be involved one way or another. But do you have a kind of an idea as to where that might be, that path?
Well, I think that the thing that I have enjoyed so much throughout my career, and I continue to, and in fact am asked about a lot, is exactly what we were talking about. How can I articulate what I did in politics, what it was like, what my journey to politics was? You know, young kids used to ask me, and do ask me, Bev, did you know you were going to be premier? You know, did you think about being premier when you were in grade 8 or grade 5 or in high school? And I didn't, you know. And so I think it's important for young people to hear the story of someone who, you know, was always political, but didn't belong to a party, did not think that this was my trajectory, but had life experience that took me to political office. So if I can be someone who can share that story, if I can be someone who can answer questions about how decisions are made and help young people to get a better understanding of how politics actually works. I'm being asked by professors to talk to their classes a lot, because young people have a real interest in how the system works. And I think right now, because of what's going on in the world, you know, whether it's climate change or whether it's COVID, young people have a lot of questions. And so if I can be part of helping them understand that, I will consider myself lucky.
Kathleen Wynne, thank you kindly for your time.
My pleasure. Thanks, Bev. Take care. Be well.